It's Reality Check with Craig Price.
I'm an idiot.
4 minutes in and I'm already wrong.
I'm like a monkey. Hello, look at me.
You're like a beautiful mind. I'm more like Forrest Gump. So it's,
Craig Price is the man.
I knew it. Craig, shut up.
it's Reality Check with Craig Price. This week, Alan Cerny kicks off Season 7 with our annual Oscar predictions. Welcome to another season of Reality Check with Craig Price. I am Craig Price, and it is lucky number 7. I appreciate you returning each and every year. Thank you very much. And if you're a new listener, thank you. I hope you continue to listen to us. Be sure to head over to realitycheckpodcast.com and subscribe to the newsletter so you can see who's coming up on the podcast. And more importantly, click on the subscribe page, which is a new feature this year, and subscribe to the podcast on whichever format works for you. That is realitycheckpodcast.com. And as we do every year, Alan Cerny with ComingSoon.net is here to discuss the Oscars. And this is one of the rare years I got to see everything nominated in the 6 categories we will be discussing. We're going to cover Best Actor and Actress, Best Supporting Actor and Actress, Best Director, and Best Picture. And having Alan on is great because on our movie previews and Oscar episodes, we usually have more downloads. The most downloaded episodes are usually the ones with Alan in them. And because of that, we've actually spun off a new podcast that we've been going on for about a month or so called Matinee Heroes. If you like movie heroes and learning lessons from them, this is the podcast for you. We're already set up for some live events. We're hosting a Spider-Man Trilogy mini marathon on Saturday, the 25th of February at the Alamo Draft House in Mason Park. We've got several Comic-Con and film festival events coming up as well as some really cool guests. So head over to matineeheroes.com and give that a try. But today, as we get ready for the Oscars this weekend, we have our picks of who we think will win, who we think should win, and more with our resident critic, Alan Cerny. If it's a season premiere, it has to be Oscar season. Alan, my buddy, it seems like I see a lot more of you every day.
Oh,
these
yeah.
days.
We see a lot of each other now. That's
Now
all
that
right.
we have,
That's
just
cool.
to remind folks of our spin-off, Matinee Heroes, which is doing fairly well. I'm very impressed. It's doing slightly better than this podcast, which is making me jealous. But, of course, we haven't taken any time off of that one since we started in January.
Yeah, we've been pushing pretty hard. And the thing is, I like that. I like that every week we have something just like a Saturday matinee movie. We have a new podcast, and it's
I
really
like
awesome.
I like it because I'm learning some things, because most of the movies I have seen, but not all of them, or I haven't seen them in a long time. So it's nice to catch up on things. So matineeheroes.com, go to that. But it's Oscar season, so we're going to do our annual rundown.
Yes, this year's an interesting year. It's we were just talking about it. It's really basically 7 movies, and with a couple of outliers. But basically, it's just 6 or 7 movies that kind of dominated the awards this year.
And one in particular, which we'll talk about, La La Land, but we'll get into that as we go through.
Yeah.
It's picked up the most nominations. It's probably going to win a lot of these, too. We'll talk about that as we get through.
I think what we'll do is, like, when we go down each nomination, we may focus on a particular film in that area. We'll see how it goes. But I mean,
well, let's start it off right off the bat, as they do in the Oscars. We'll start off with actress in a supporting role. We have Viola Davis from Fences, Naomi Harris from Moonlight, Nicole Kidman from Lion, Octavia Spencer from Hidden Figures, and Michelle Williams, Manchester by the Sea. So, process of elimination is how I'm doing this particular category.
okay.
Right off the bat, I think we both agree Michelle Williams wasn't in Manchester by the Sea enough to win.
She's really good in it.
Sure.
But it is 2 scenes. Every time I hear about this stuff, supporting actress, I mean, they don't have a nomination for a walk-on role or one scene thing. That's just how it works.
This is like the Judi Dench Award now.
And you know what? If you want to be fair, and I'm just kind of going back in 1991 with Silence of the Lambs, you had Anthony Hopkins playing Lecter. Lecter's in the movie maybe 30 minutes, if that. It's actually, if you want to be honest, I mean, he has a dominance to the part, but it's actually really supporting. Supporting is a weird thing, and we can talk about it for this award in particular because Viola Davis for Fences has no business being in this category, and not because she's not great, because she's spectacularly great. I'm pissed off that the studio was so chicken that they felt, well, let's put her in supporting because the powerhouse performances as an actress may shut her out. frankly, she may be better than all the people, except for maybe one or two of all the people that are nominated for Best Actress. So they shunted her off an actress in a supporting role. And to me, she's the best of the five here, without a doubt.
Well, no,
Without a
absolutely.
doubt.
I'm not a big fan of Fences. I thought the movie itself was they talked way too fast for me.
Well, it's not very cinematic.
It's very
such
dense.
a play. It's a play as a movie, and I mean, it has three locations, if that. The backyard, the house, and maybe the porch, and maybe walking down the street, and that's about it. So, I mean, it's August Wilson. It's a Pulitzer Prize-winning play. It's a classic. Everybody loves it, and it is a great play.
And it's an important play,
It's
but
not,
it's very
and I
dense.
think it's a great movie. I think it deserves to be here. It's one of my favorites of the year of this nomination, anyway. But Viola Davis is so far above and beyond. It's not just supporting, because she's a huge chunk of the film, and her stuff. I mean, my wife, she's a fan of Viola Davis, but she can't stand listening to her cry. On screen, because she's a snotter.
Oh, she is a big snotter. She's a super snotter.
Yeah.
But I think that lends to the authenticity, because she's really good at getting into there and going crazy, and deservedly so. She's fantastic in it.
Yeah.
It's just that this was definitely a Denzel vehicle.
It was, but I think that she gives so much that she should be recognized.
Oh,
for
absolutely.
What she does here.
I have no problem with this particular with Viola Davis. What we'll go back to, because we did exactly what they did in the movie. We completely ran by Michelle Williams. We just
Yeah.
she's in it, moved
I mean,
on.
and she's really good in Manchester by the Sea. But I think her whole presence is to elicit an emotional reaction, and that's pretty much it.
And she's there for someone for Casey Affleck to not necessarily emote against, because emoting is not what he does in this movie.
No.
And that
but
is not-
he's kind of a surrogate for us to have our emotions. The scene on the street
Yeah.
is a great scene, and she does a lot of great heavy lifting in that moment. But it's one scene out of the entire film where basically the movie is Casey Affleck's performance and Lucas Hedges in a lesser degree. But
Michelle Williams, like I said, I think we can move on from her.
she
as we
can
already did.
okay, in the strictest sense, she could be supporting, but it may as well just be one or two
Yeah, it's a
parts.
cameo. Octavia Spencer from Hidden Figures.
She's great.
She's great in everything she does.
Yeah, she's
I'm
great.
excited. She's going to be hosting SNL either this week or next week or coming up. So
And I loved her work in this movie. And
I loved her in, what was that stupid one? Dinner with what was the one where they had the weird? Was it Stephen Carell?
Yeah.
And
She
She
Steve
was like
Carell and
she thought
Dinner
she was
with
a lobster.
I can't remember the name now. Dinner with Friends or something like that.
But she was great in that. She's great in everything she does, and it's really weird to see her, Octavia Spencer, because every once in a while you'll watch TV and she's always been in these very low impact characters.
Yeah.
Almost like a working actor, quote unquote working actor that nobody knows about. She comes in, she plays a maid, she plays this, she does that. But she's great in everything she does, no matter how small the role is.
If she won for this, I think that in a way that would probably be an audience favorite kind of thing, because Hidden Figures is that one movie, and actually I'm not quite sure of the numbers if it's up with La La Land, but I think Hidden Figures may be the most financially successful
it
film.
surpassed La La Land last week. It's the most successful nominated film.
And so Oscar may recognize. I mean, I think voting is stopped already, but Oscar may recognize that as that Hidden Figures is that of all the films that are nominated here, Hidden Figures is actually the financial maker, and that's really cool because Hidden Figures is a good movie.
Yeah, it is very good,
and B, it's a story that needed to be told, and I think for all the talk of diversity in the Oscars, a film that is not just diverse but is actually an audience favorite that people like, because Moonlight, for all its diversity, is not going to be an easily embraced film by a lot of people.
I had a tough time. I had a tough road to hoe with that. And Naomi Harris, there are two actresses in it. Mm-hmm. Naomi Harris is the mother, and so there was a lot more work involved in that one. I thought she did a great job in Moonlight. She does not play a likable character.
No, not at all.
She does not play it, and she plays it without much remorse.
And it's hard to feel sympathy for her, and at the same time, the thing about Moonlight, I loved Moonlight, and I'm still debating what I want to win Best Picture. I always struggle with the idea of, we'll get to it when we talk about it, but I always struggle with the idea of what my favorite is versus what, if it wins, what it has to say. And I think Moonlight has a lot to say if it wins, but it's definitely not my favorite of Best Pictures. It didn't even make my top 10.
Yeah, no,
but
it wasn't one of my. It was a tough one to get through, not because of the content, just because of the pacing.
it's not.
There
It's
was
very deliberate.
There was moments where I kind of especially near the end, I kind of wandered off in my
Yeah.
brain, and when I came back, they hadn't moved the plot forward anywhere.
I think
And
my
I didn't
favorite.
Think I missed. I don't
my
think I missed
favorite.
anything.
Yeah, my favorite section of Moonlight is the third act. And I
Black?
yeah,
Or is it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it is a hard movie to embrace, and because it's not my story, and I understand that, and it's a story of a way that's hard to describe for me personally. But the filmmaking is of high quality. Its cinematography is beautiful. It's a beautiful film. Naomi Harris in Moonlight, I think she's very good. I think she is outshined by a few performances in here. If you want to be honestly fair, the only two real supporting performances in this category, well, it's three. She is supporting.
Yes.
Naomi Harris is supporting. Nicole Kidman is supporting. Octavia Spencer is supporting. Michelle Williams isn't enough to really be
Cameo,
supporting.
yeah.
And Viola Davis is Best Actress material. And Nicole Kidman, we can talk about her really quick because she is very good in Lion.
I thought she was great in it.
She's
the emotional anchor in that one.
Yeah, I didn't expect what she did in that movie. I didn't expect it at all. I thought because Nicole Kidman has always come across as cold to me in her work in a lot of ways. Some more empathetic than others, but in this one, she's very empathetic, and I loved her work here. I loved her give and take with Dev Patel. It really felt like a genuine mother-son relationship. And I thought that she has a really warm heart in this film. She is quite good, and she does deserve to be here. But of the five nominees, the best performance is Viola Davis. But if you want to get into the best supporting performance, which is really supporting, it's Octavia Spencer.
Yeah, and this is the sad part about that is of all the people in Hidden Figures, she's not even the best one in it,
Oh, no, Taraj Henson's amazing.
and she's not nominated.
She's not nominated. We'll talk about that.
So I think if
know.
Octavia Spencer does win, it should be, and even the third lady, she was great.
Yeah.
in Hidden Figures. I think the cast was really well done. I think if Octavia Spencer wins, it's kind of a group effort kind of
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Because I think Octavia Spencer's great, but I don't think she was so great.
My favorite moment of her, I guess that moment when she masters that computer and she says, "Oh, I just read the book." It's like, and
Every man in the room's like, wait a minute, reading instructions? No
Yeah.
way. That's not what we do.
And this the severe sense of pride that she has, and she's really, really good in Hidden Figures. Hidden Figures is a movie that grows a lot in my estimation. When I watched it the first time, I really liked it, but now I really like it.
I think we can both agree that Viola Davis should win this one.
She should win.
but
She
based
should
on the
win based
acting.
on. She should win based on who's in the category because she is tremendously great. But she really should be an actress. Actress is kind of. We'll get to that, but actress is kind of a mess this year, and I'll get.
Yeah,
into
there's
that.
always one category, and sometimes there's a lot of categories
Yeah.
that are a mess. But I think we would not be surprised if Octavia won, but we pretty much think Viola
Davis is gonna
got
win.
this down. All right. So then we go to actor in a supporting role, and this one is going to be the first name I've been practicing in.
First off, all the nominees in this role are outstanding.
Oh,
It's going to
there's-
be hard to
this
pick
is not a
great
weak
one.
category.
Yeah, no, not at all.
So we got Mahershala Ali from Moonlight,
Right?
Jeff Bridges, Hell or High Water, Lucas Hedges, Manchester by the Sea, Dev Patel and Lion, and Michael Shannon, Nocturnal Animals. Now, process of elimination, the first person I remove is Michael Shannon. Not because, and you know how much I love Michael Shannon.
Really, he would not be the first person I would.
Well, like I
remove
said,
here.
for me, Michael Shannon,
Actually, it would be hard pressed to figure out who I would remove here because they are all outstanding performances. They
Well,
are all
I'm just saying-
genuinely supporting performances.
there's two people that I would, but Michael Shannon's the first one I would remove. No, because we got the five. So I would say, because I do a process of elimination, whoever's left wins. I thought Michael did a great job, but he does a great job in everything. But I didn't see anything that distinguished him from someone else I could swap in and out. That's how I understand. I think if someone did a great job, is did they define that character on their own? Like a Christoph Waltz who did a Hans Lanza. That's him. There's nobody else who could do that role.
right.
Michael Shannon on this particular one, and in Loving, I thought you could swap somebody else who could do that, and because I didn't see anything
I really loved Michael Shannon in Nocturnal Animals, and he's the best performance in that film.
Yes, that's because I'm not a big fan of that movie.
I really loved Nocturnal Animals. Actually,
Did ya?
I liked it quite a bit. I loved. It's basically the never-ending story for grown-ups.
Who's the dragon?
Uh,
Who's the white dragon? What's his name?
it would be Aaron. Oh no, it wouldn't be him. Wow, that's probably Michael Shannon would actually be the White Dragon. You know. But I love his work here.
It's good work. I don't want to. Again, we've already agreed they're all good.
It's weird that he plays a fictional character that's not that we know is fiction. It's a kind of a meta thing that how he plays it, because his segments in the film we know are fiction, but we have to look through that segment in the film to try to find the reality of Amy Adams' character situation. Right. I really liked his performance. He plays a good old boy, dying of cancer, who wants to finish this case. He wants to help out Jake Gyllenhaal, and the work that he does is really strong. If you're gonna go hickey redneck, though, I think Jeff Bridges may have it over him.
Yeah. Jeff Bridges really rednecked this one up.
Yeah, in Hell or High Water, he's outstanding. You know, if there's anybody who can make just blatant racism charming, it's Jeff Bridges.
And his it wasn't blatant racism. He knew what he was doing. He had a relationship with his coworker.
Yeah, you know, at the same time, you know, he would never say these things to somebody who he didn't care about or know.
Right.
Because he knows. I mean, he knows he's not serious.
So I don't want to say
we
blatant racism.
don't know exactly. I mean, to say those things and think those things, you have to be a little bit, you know.
Yeah, but you could tell that the relationship between him and his buddy was there from the very beginning, because it was a give and take. He's the old guy who goes on the racist thing, and his buddy would always go with the "you're old and getting out of," and, you know. Because he was the very first time they were talking is about him retiring, and he's like, well, maybe these guys will shoot me out in a blaze of glory, which is all foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But in a kind of reverse way.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I've seen you shoot. You're in trouble because you.
Yeah.
So I thought it was right from the start, because I do know people like that, and I'm sure you do. Living in Texas,
we live in Texas.
We know people who.
Hell or High Water, even though it was shot in New Mexico, is a pure Texas movie through and through.
And it's a pure West Texas movie.
Yeah,
It's not a Houston, Austin movie.
It's West
El
Texas.
Paso.
Yeah.
But we all know people who are good-hearted, who really aren't racist, but they have, because they've been around for so long and they lived in Texas.
We kind of like discussed this a little bit in Smokey and the Bandit, where we all have to live together. And so we have these predilections, right?
But I think this guy it's more of accumulated knowledge.
Yeah.
He's been in a situation because he's old. I mean, he's Jeff Bridges, who is probably playing older than he actually is.
Yeah.
So he's probably playing like a 70-year-old guy going, and 75-year-old dude who's been around racist people his whole life. He's heard all these jokes.
Yeah.
He may not believe them, but at least he has the ammunition.
Let me tell you something that makes this movie very, very Texas for me. He drinks Shiner Bock. He doesn't drink Lone Star. And if you live in Texas, you should understand something. And I don't know how much feedback we're going to get on this. Lone Star beer sucks.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's awful.
Shiner Bock is way better. And for him to drink Shiner Bock really endeared me to him, because Shiner Bock is the real beer of Texas. Don't let anybody tell you any different.
I do have a problem with Jeff Bridges recently. In the last couple roles he's had, he's gotten really marble mouthed.
Yeah, he's hard to understand.
And it's not just this role; it's just in every role.
Yeah, you put it in a movie and it's like, okay, well, it's subtitles.
Let's put
the subtitles on.
And it was you really had to make sure that there was no.
But I didn't feel like that so much with this. Maybe because we grew up with that accent, so I can understand. I can understand where he was going. So let's go on to Lucas Hedges in Manchester by the Sea.
This was a surprise to me. I thought he did a good job, but
I think he's really good. I don't know. In comparison to the rest of the performances here, I don't know if he quite matches up. But he also had hard work to do, where it's a performance about a kid who has lost his dad. And this is the part where I could really, really relate to that, because I was at the exact same age when my dad died. And I understand the point of I'm grieving. I'm trying to move on with my life. And at the same time, I have my life that's mine. And I have to form my place. It's at the most integral part of your life where you're trying to figure out exactly who you are, and suddenly the rug is just pulled out from under you, and the major foundation of who your life was and who you built your life around is gone. And so where do you go? You have no rudder. You're walking around without any direction. And then you have this guy who's your uncle who's going to come take care of you, who is just not equipped to do it. is just not has the mental or emotional capacity to handle it.
And yet, because of the relationship, he loves his uncle. He thinks his uncle's the greatest guy in the world because you could see the relationship they had before the father died. It's really weird when you're in a situation where someone who didn't have any of the responsibility but had all the fun,
Yeah,
all of a sudden has to be the responsibility, and
Exactly.
they can't handle it.
exactly.
It's like watching your heroes fail, and not just fail
It's
slightly,
hard.
but
And
fail in the
yeah,
worst
and
possible
it's-
time
it's
in the
a
worst
hard,
way.
hard piece of life to deal with. He's really good in the movie. And Manchester by the Sea, I've only watched it the once because it's a hard movie to watch, man. I mean, a couple of these I've only seen once, but that one I just hadn't been able to get back to it, and I don't know if I can for a while. It's a tough movie. But he is quite good in it. He does deserve to be here. I don't know if he's in the par with the other performances that are in this category, but he does have some hard work to do because he's playing a teenager, but he's playing a teenager with a lot going on, and to put all that in the performance is tough. Dev Patel and Lion. But we were talking about this. This might be an actor performance, not a supporting actor performance.
I thought he was the lead character. I hear a lot of people saying the kid was the lead, and I think they're giving the fact that this little guy, he was cute, he was really good, but I think they kind of, it's emotional. They're like, oh, I think he should be the lead actor in this situation. Like, no, he was definitely.
He was very good. Dev Patel is kind of the movie that kind of once that section of the movie starts, it really kind of becomes the movie,
Yes.
you know. And he's very, very good in this film. I love the emotional struggle he had. The moment in the film where he figures out he's been looking in the wrong place on the map, and the revelation he had, and watching and you know, this is a great advertisement. Lion is like the best advertisement for Google Earth ever. You know, it's and when he looks down on his hometown, and the expression on his face, and that he found it, and the anguish that he was feeling because he was disconnected. He had buried it and managed to come back up again. It's hard. He does a lot of heavy lifting for the half of the movie that he's in, and he's really quite good.
I think his performance is a lot like, I want to say like Tom Hanks in Captain Phillips, where I thought in Captain Phillips, pretty much any actor of quality could have done what Tom Hanks did until the very end.
That moment, yeah.
That scene, and sometimes some of these people are nominated not because of the movie, because of a certain moment in that scene. So you're talking about that moment where he realizes. Sometimes there's so much emotion and there's so much reality coming out and authenticity coming out of somebody. When Captain Phillips, when he's recovering and the nurse is taking a look at him, and that was a legitimate nurse actually doing a real medical.
Yeah,
nurse.
and then
but
because
the way
he had
Tom-
to it was a dam bursting, right?
but it was
him
him coming out of shock.
Yeah.
But he played it unbelievably well. I mean, he should have got nominated just for that scene, and he was.
Yeah.
Dev Patel, I think he had two parts. The one you're talking of,
And
and
then
then
the very end, yeah.
and the very, very end when he's with his family, just kind of realizing his
That
brother.
moment, I mean, when I sat down to Lion, I was half expecting to watch. I thought it was Oscar bait, to be honest with you. I thought it was an Oscar baity kind of movie. I was like, well, this is the kind of movie that is engineered to win Oscars. But I really found myself really engaged with it in a way that I was not expecting. And it turned into a movie that I really hold in really high regard here, especially once Dev Patel gets on the scene. And those performances, not just by him, but by David Wenham and Nicole Kidman and Rooney Mara, and all the work that's involved there in building this film, it's really emotionally strong, especially now. And I love that America doesn't even enter into this movie. It's not even relevant.
Yeah,
you know?
Rooney, Mara Rooney plays an American, but
I mean, it's not even part of it.
That's like saying anybody you just grabbed anybody. Oh, they just happen to be from America. It's no influence.
It's a story of the world, and I really, really dug Lion a lot, and yeah, he deserves to be here. And then we have Mahershala Ali in Moonlight, and I think he's amazing in that part.
He had a great year last year.
Yeah.
Did you see the Luke Cage?
I haven't watched it yet.
He is the main villain in that. He is phenomenal.
Okay.
And he's done some other thing. He was in Hidden Figures,
Yes, he was.
where he plays a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I thought he was great and charming in that.
Yeah.
And so this was a breakout year for how do you say his name?
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala. He is fantastic this year.
And in Moonlight, I love his character because, let's be honest, he's a drug dealer.
With a heart of gold.
But, I don't
But
want to
not
put
in
it
that
like
modeling
that.
way.
This is a movie about people who don't get the choices that we have. This is money. I have to make a living. What am I going to do? I can't. This is. And, he's. Man, I'm going to get controversial here. We operate with the choices that we have available to us, and this is the choice that was available to him. He is serving a need. He is serving a market. And so he sells drugs. But he is not just a drug dealer. We are not our jobs. We are who we are. And the fact is that he is, as a man, the best touchstone for this character in the movie, for Black in the movie. And the work that he does in that first half is just great. And to watch him interact with him, the scene on the beach in the water where he's holding him in the water, because he never had a father. He never had anybody to do anything like that to him. And you take your fathers where you get them. And I think his performance is tremendously great. The best nomination of this part, it's a tough call for me. They're all pretty equally great.
Yeah, this is not a weak category.
No. And I can't remember whether or not Jeff Bridges has ever won an Oscar. I think
he
he's
won for
that's right.
the country singer.
Yeah,
movie.
that's right. This is just a few years ago. That's how old I'm getting. My memory is bad. It's always a difficult prospect to give awards to children or not kid. He's not a child anymore, but Lucas Hedges is a young kid, and they never tend to do that because it's like it's like Haley Joel Osment is so good in The Sixth Sense, and he deserved to be nominated. He really kind of deserved to win that award because he was a kid, and obviously we hadn't seen him again since in other parts.
Well,
so
the supporting role
you know,
is the one place where I think they do. That's why you see people in supporting roles that are often very young. Amir Sorvino, who you don't necessarily think they should be there, but I'm sorry, not Amir Sorvino. Who won?
Marissa Tomei.
Marissa Tomei.
There you go.
Marissa Tomei, who was very young at the time when she won that. It's one of those things where they put this is like the one spot where they're a little more open to younger folks.
Right.
I don't think Lucas is up to par with everybody else.
Right.
That doesn't mean he did a bad job. I just don't think he's up to par with Dev or Mr. Ali.
Yeah, the two parts that are fighting for this award for me in category of quote unquote best are probably Dev Patel and Michael Shannon. And if I'm going to squeeze through it, I know you don't think Michael Shannon is good, but I do think his performance was worthy to be nominated here.
Oh, I do
if
too.
I'm going to squint and I'm going to pick one, and if I have to say pick one now, it'll be Dev Patel for Lion.
Yeah.
I think.
I agree. I also think Mahershala might
He might sneak in.
Yeah.
And if it's a kind of a three-way race, in my opinion, for this one, it's going to be Ali, Patel, and Shannon. And Shannon has been winning a lot of the awards, but Dev Patel is actually building, from one of the momentum is building up as well around him.
Because I think
this could be a real horse race. We got a kind of a 3-horse race in this one as well.
Well, let's move on to actress in a leading role, and this one is
First off, this nomination, no offense, is a garbage fire. There are so many great performances this year that aren't here.
Well, let's get to the ones that are, and then we'll throw in the ones that should be.
Yeah.
So Isabelle Huppert.
Hubert.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's French. I forgot. Isabelle Huppert for Elle. Ruth Negga for Loving. Natalie Portman for Jackie. Emma Stone for La La Land. And Meryl Streep for Florence Foster Jenkins.
All right, first off, let's just, no offense to Meryl Streep, who's a great actress. Let's just kick that away a little bit.
I don't know. That is a Reputation nomination.
Totally Reputation nomination.
She didn't do a bad job, but she didn't do anything. I saw it. Because that's the one movie I think you have not seen.
Meryl Streep is our greatest living actor. Actor, actress, actor. She's our greatest living actor. They're going to nominate her every time she comes up to plate. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and this one I definitely was not. And my problem I'm having is I'm afraid all the political stuff going on
is going to boost her just so people hear her giving a speech.
I don't think so for this award.
She's winning all this other stuff. She's won a couple
I
other
think
things.
that this award's practically kind of a lock in some way. Well, maybe not exactly a lock, but I don't think she's going to win for this.
Okay.
I don't think she's going to win for this.
Save your lock for the end. So, who's the next? So Meryl Streep gone.
Yeah.
Who's the next person that we probably need to remove?
Well, we can't remove any of these four.
Really?
No.
I got one.
Who?
Because it's just because I'm not a fan of the movie, and I wasn't a fan of her character. Emma Stone. I thought she did a good job.
Strongly, vehemently,
I know that,
180% disagree
but
with you.
I thought she did a fine job, but I don't think she did as well as Ruth or Natalie.
Okay, well, let's just talk a little bit about the monster that is La La Land. It is a Hollywood film, which automatically means it's going to get nominated.
This is a
it's
circle
movie.
jerk.
It's a movie about Hollywood that loves Hollywood and loves acting. And here it's a moment in this
And they're
performance.
singing too, so that means they're acting with music.
Yeah,
and
it reminds me of that John Lithgow bit on SNL. And this is the part of my performance when I flail, and is acting kind of thing. But you can look at La La Land that way. You can also look at La La Land in a different way. And I look at it and I think La La Land is an outstanding film. I have no complaints if it wins. It's one of my personal favorites that's nominated here. Although it's so hard. Look, when you make a top 10 list or you make a list of best movies of the year or whatever, and you write it down, people need to understand that it's not locked, okay? Movies tend to rise and fall in your estimation over the years. And movies that I love weren't necessarily even on my radar years ago when I did the top 10. And there's a movie this year, La La Land, which I rank very, very highly in my top 10. I don't know whether it's going to stay there. However, right now, I love La La Land. And Emma Stone...
here's the reason why I think people love La La Land. My wife loved La La Land. I think it's because this is one of those first time we've had a musical that wasn't based on a play.
Well, not the first time, but yeah, one of the
No,
first
I'm
times
talking
in a long time.
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying. It's one of the first times in a long time because almost all the musicals we've seen in the last decade, 20 years, have been name the last original musical. And people will go even
there are some, but
well,
it's
even
not.
then,
But they didn't make the big rounds.
But even like Moulin Rouge, which is a musical, but it's stolen music, which is, I thought was innovative and it was fun, and unfortunately became a trend. But there hasn't been a as my wife calls them, a 1960s musical.
Well,
and so I think people have fallen back in love with something because they haven't seen it in a long time versus the quality of it.
Well, I'm
not saying it's a bad movie. I think it's a good movie. I just think this is the kind of movie that Hollywood falls over themselves to give awards to, and regardless of quality.
I'm a fan of musicals. I'm a fan of the stage play productions. I'm a fan of movie musicals, more movie musicals. Here's the thing about La La Land. Movie musicals lately, to me, aren't very good. And the reason they're not very good is that they rely too much on stage stuff. When a movie musical is a movie, it needs to be a movie. That's why I basically cheered at the beginning of La La Land with Another Day of Sun, with that song and the performance and the way the camera work moved. That's something that could not be duplicated on stage. That's what movie musicals are supposed to have. Stuff that can't be duplicated on stage, where it's sweeping and big. Not every musical number has to be that way, but when it's a moment that can't be duplicated on stage and it feels huge and giant and Busby Berkeley-esque and something like one of those lines, Another Day of Sun is great. And so La La Land is very much a movie musical, which I really love because I love movie musicals, and not necessarily doesn't have to be based on previous material, but because it only can be done in a film. And so, and the message of La La Land to me, it's a movie to me about how people make the choices in their lives, and not necessarily a choice of their career versus their love life or their career versus their personal life, their dreams versus the reality. And these two people have dreams that they cannot deny. It's intrinsically a part of who they are as breathing. They want to be, Sebastian wants to be a famous jazz club person, and Mia wants to be an actress. She wants these things. Their dreams are so integrated into who they are as a person that for this relationship to work and for them to be the people that they need to be, they can't be together. It just can't be. Because to be together would be to sacrifice that intrinsic part of themselves, and which they can't be. They would not be the same people.
If only more people would give Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone a break, because that's the other part.
Okay,
You cannot
see, you're watching it with the wrong eyes.
I guess I am.
You're watching it with the wrong eyes. You're seeing the movie star, and you're not seeing the character. Okay,
That's because I didn't think I'm sorry, Ryan Gosling can't sing, and two, Emma, and that's the problem I had is I thought Emma Stone could sing.
Emma Stone can sing. She can sing great.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought Ryan Gosling can sing enough. He can definitely dance, but then you cannot throw a John Legend in, because what it does, and I know you said you like the lo-fi of it. That's fine too, but you can't go from such a gap, because all of a sudden it went from a musical. Then we suddenly realized, hey, people were watching all these high schoolers.
There is an intrinsic problem with La La Land that I can address, in that you got Sebastian, who's a connoisseur of jazz. He wants to quote save the genre, right? Jazz is a primarily African American genre that white people kind of became a part of, and now it's kind of a mix, but primarily it's an African American genre. So there's a statement of a white guy saying he's going to save jazz is automatically suspect a little bit. And then you've got John Legend, an African American performer who plays this really glossy kind of jazz light sort of thing. It's not jazz light, it's like rock and roll more than anything.
But I like the point that he was making is that jazz is growing. Jazz changes. Jazz does not stay the same. That's the point of jazz. It took John Legend to say, look, man, you're being too much of a traditionalist.
Yeah, but John Legend's performance does not, the song does not indicate what he's saying. The song is it's a really great song. And I'm not trying to complain. I mean, I'm going to the context of the movie and not what the song is. The song is really good. But in the context of the movie, the way the song is presented, it's a step back for Ryan Gosling's character. That's not the kind of music.
That's not the music genre.
It's not the kind of music that he wants to make. And so there comes this weird issue where you've got a white guy who's trying to build jazz and a black guy who is making music, and his music is somehow lesser than the music that the white guy is making. Okay, that's the problem of La La Land. La La Land has got a lot of complicated stuff when it comes to that. But on a surface level, I think it's a feel-good kind of film. On a deeper level, there are issues about dreams versus reality and relationships and the people and the intrinsic parts of yourself. And on a reality, even under that, it's like a white guy saving jazz, really? It's got a lot of weird stuff going on, okay? A lot of weird stuff.
I think John Legend is the only black person in the movie who's not a prop.
That's true.
Which is sad. But the one thing I did like about La La Land is, and this is a spoiler-ish, I mean, they're both willing to end their relationship to help the other person and themselves. Mm-hmm. So there's a point where she's not going to audition anymore, and she gets this great opportunity. They're no longer involved with each other, and yet he's willing to drive all the way over there. He's willing to do all these things to sacrifice to their relationship so she can go to France for 6 months or whatever. Yeah. And they're both willing to do it.
It's a love that's kind of deeper than just being together in a weird
love
way.
Their talents.
It's a mutual love and respect, right?
It's a love and respect of the talents and the dreams of the other person, regardless of how it affects their relationship positively or negatively.
Yeah.
They want them to succeed, which you don't see a lot. In real life, you don't. Usually, there's always somebody who's complaining.
I thought the last 15 minutes of La La Land were very brave and innovative and moving and powerful. And
that part I thought was
very well done. There's emotional weight and power to La La Land that I really liked. Now, Emma Stone as actress, she is here for really one thing, and that's when she sings Audition. I'll take that back. The performance that she and Ryan Gosling do, the dance sequence on the street, I really love their spark that they had there. And she's really good in this movie. Emma Stone's really good. To pick the winner of this category, I mean, I think she's kind of got the momentum in this, but
she's got the La La Land.
Because that is the rising tide is lifting all the boats in that movie. But she's really, really good. I do think she deserves to be nominated for Best Actress.
I thought she did a very good job. Let's go to the weirdest one here, which is my thought was the surprise here, which was Isabelle Huppert.
Isabelle Huppert, Elle, is my favorite of all of them. She's my favorite performance of all of them, and
it's definitely a non-traditional role.
I want her to win.
She did a great job in it, and the movie I can't reconcile. it's one of those weird movies that there's a lot of things going on.
For our listeners who don't know what Elle is about, Elle is a movie that is directed by Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven, RoboCop,
Star Troopers,
Total Recall, Basic Instinct. He is a very visceral director. He's a very in-your-face kind of director. He made a film about a woman who is a video game programmer. She works for a video game company. She's like a producer. One night, she is attacked, brutally raped in her home. And the next day, she goes about her business. She doesn't call the cops. She doesn't. I think she calls the cops and say that she had a break-in, but she doesn't say she was raped or anything like that.
No, then she went to the doctor.
She goes to the doctor, and then she goes about her life, and she doesn't. And a few days later, she says in a casual conversation, "Oh, by the way, the other day I was raped." And everybody kind of looks at her funny. This is a woman who has had huge tragedy in her life, and whether or not she orchestrated that tragedy is unclear.
There's no spoiler because we don't know.
Yeah, it's unclear. She may be a quote-unquote victim, or she may be psychotic. We don't really know until we watch this film. And this is a woman who has disconnected herself, even to the point that her own son can't relate to her at all. I mean, he grew up with her, and she treated him basically as a prop. It's a brave, strong performance. Whether or not it's feminist is an arguable thing, because, for one thing, Paul Verhoeven has not made what you would call feminist movies. He's very...
This movie feels like it was a feminist movie written by men. I mean, it feels like this is what men think women should do.
Yeah, but no, because...
That's how I walked away from it, because I was kind of going...
Her performance is so strong.
She does a great... No, she is fantastic. She puts on an epic
She puts it
performance.
on... the idea is that you can make this grand statement about feminism if you want to, but her performance is so idiosyncratic to her and what she's experienced in her life that it's hard to extrapolate this bigger issue, okay? Because this is a unique character and has a unique point of view and a unique situation that not everybody's going to have. She refuses to be a victim, but not because of the rape. It's because she is not geared to be that. She's not been geared to be a victim since she was a child. And it's complicated and weird, and sometimes it cuts, and it's jagged, and it leaves a bruise or it leaves a scar. The work that Isabelle Huppert does here, I compare to Daniel Day-Lewis, okay? There's so much going on under the surface, and she puts it in her face, and she puts it on screen, and you don't know whether to hug this woman or to put her as far away from you as possible. It's powerhouse performance. It is easily the best performance of this nomination. Easily.
Like I said, she is fantastic. There is no doubts about that. I did have doubts about the movie, and I didn't know who wrote it because it's all in French. So when I was looking at the credits, all of a sudden I'm like, I'll just wait until the movie starts. So I didn't really look at who wrote it until after the fact. So these emotions that I had were unknown who wrote it, because I thought maybe it was a Paul Verhoeven. Maybe he got somebody, a female writer, to work with him or something. I don't know. But it definitely felt like this is not, even I understand what they're trying to do with her, but this was not something that was written by, in any aspects, by a woman. Anything that I felt that it was a woman was because Isabelle brought that to the character.
It's dangerous to bring bigger topics and issues into this particular movie because the character is so unlike. And then at the same time, I feel I don't want to make this general sweeping statements either, because her character is unique, and different things have happened to her that have not happened to everybody. But at the same time, she has carried that stuff. She is a woman who has had this stuff happen to her, and women of all sorts of types have had all sorts of terrible things happen to them, and to make her situation unique, it's problematic. I thought Elle was incredible. I thought it was an incredible movie. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, no,
but it's not for me. I think her work is definitely deserving of nomination, and I do think it's a great film.
Oh, I have no, and I actually think the fact that the movie is actually a good movie, in the fact that I thought it was well done, but it also makes you talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it provokes conversation more than anything, which may be the point.
That's why I call it a good and successful movie, is because regardless, you don't just dismiss it as garbage or dismiss it as a masterpiece. This because it hit all the buttons, and you're like, oh, that's perfect. This is not. This is a very bizarre, strange amalgamation of different things that you're not expecting.
It is admirable that we talk about this movie. It deserves to be talked about because I think in the discussion may be more important than the film.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to Natalie Portman as Jackie, which was a slog.
I know you didn't like it. I thought Jackie was amazing.
I thought Natalie Portman's performance was great. I thought the movie was a slog.
Here's the thing about Jackie that I admired, and this is the thing about biopics in particular that I have a thing with. I don't like a lot of biopics. The reason I don't like a lot of biopics is that they go from this is where it starts to this is where it ends. They go through the whole scope of the life, right? I really like biopics. They try to come at it a different way. Let's not do a whole biopic of this person. Let's take this part of their life and put it on screen. Movies like Lincoln, which deals primarily with the
Frost
passage.
Nixon.
Yeah, or Frost Nixon. Or even a movie that's just kind of weird, like I'm Not There, the Bob Dylan / sort of biopic.
Oh, yeah, that was the one where they had like 58 people play Bob Dylan.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 people playing Bob Dylan, different segments, different sections. And each segment is kind of different.
I thought there were about 50 or 60 different
people.
Yeah,
I love that movie because it genuinely came in a different way. Because most of the biopics are, hey, this happens, then this happens, and this happens. We see them at their rise, and we see something bad happen in their life. I mean, Walk Hard is like the perfect example of a movie that spoofs that kind of thing. Jackie is deliberately about the 2 weeks surrounding JFK's assassination and how she deals with it, and her public persona and her private persona. In her public persona, she has this resolute thing. This is what I want. This is what we want to keep the country to move ahead, to move past this point. But I want to pay respect to my husband. And privately, she's a mess. She's coming apart at the seams. But she can't let that happen. And I thought it was an amazing performance. I know the movie doesn't go A to B to C like that. It's an emotional kind of crest and a wave. You're kind of riding it. And whether or not you like that sort of thing. For one thing, it's produced by Darren Aronofsky, who makes a lot of movies like this. It felt very much like an Aronofsky film. But I thought it was great. I think that here's a performance we talked about that wasn't nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I thought Peter Sarsgaard as JFK's brother, and I can't believe his name is escaping. Bobby Kennedy. Bobby Kennedy, right. That's so stupid. I can't even think of a name. Bobby Kennedy was great. I love the anger in his voice. He was so pissed off that this had happened. He's so angry. He's more angry than mourning. And every conversation he has with Jackie, other people, he's like barely coiled rage. I loved his work in this. I thought Jackie's a great movie. Natalie Portman is amazing. She has to be here.
She did a great job. No, she was fantastic.
There's no way she's not here. I don't think she's as good as Isabelle Huppert. Putting pen to paper in comparison to her and Emma Stone, yeah, she's probably better than Emma Stone's work. But I do think she's worthy of being here. I didn't think Jackie was a slog at all. I really liked that film a lot. I saw it twice.
Well, wow. I had a hard time seeing it once. Like I said, again, it's one of those situations where the acting is great. It's that it's just the pacing was weird. They spent a long time on things that they really didn't need to spend that much time on, and so maybe were they trying to build emotion? I don't know. It didn't work for me. Now, with Loving was our next movie with Ruth Negga was not. It was.
It's really dry.
It's less of a slog, but not much less.
Yeah, it's kind of a dry. Here's the thing about Jeff Nichols as a director, and I love Jeff Nichols. He tries to avoid sentiment until you have to have it. So what some would say is not emotional, some say is actually him trying to give us that emotion when it matters. And Loving is a lot like that. Loving was a bit of a slog for me. I kind of went in and out on it too.
Yeah. And that's weird because
to be fair, when I had it on, I was actually writing, so I was kind of doing other things at the time.
Which is weird because I think Ruth Negga,
her performance is great.
She's great in it, but also I like her in almost everything she does.
Yeah.
She's in Preacher, which is a television show.
Yeah.
Where she's a little sassy and she's usually fun and I'm glad to see her taking on different roles because I think she can do a lot and she does a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But Joel Edgerton did a great job, but it was just a lot of empty space as we waited for them to get into trouble.
Yeah.
And to see people treat them badly. And
Jeff Nichols makes quiet movies, even when he's making a movie like Midnight Special. The things that he likes to look at are not necessarily the things that audiences follow down through. I think her performance is strong, and I think it deserved to be here. It's hard to talk about Loving. It's not the most open of movies, really. You know, it's kind of hard to talk about.
I just want to know who kept on calling the cops.
Right.
Because they were in the middle of nowhere and cops are coming. They're every time they show back up in Virginia, it's like almost like they've got trackers on them, and as soon as they walk in, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Now I know that actually happened. It's a true
Yep.
story.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I wish they'd explained that more versus just they were doing, because that would have shown the opposition that they had to do. Because I didn't really feel like there was people out.
They
to
don't
get
really
them.
say it so much in the movie, but I have the feeling that they've been being watched, basically.
So I know you want Isabel to win,
Isabella's the best of these.
and do you think she will?
It's tough. It's a tough one. This one's a little bit of a horse race because Isabelle Huppert has won a lot of awards for her performance for this movie and other places. Emma Stone's won some awards for her performance in this movie. Natalie Portman won the Houston Film Critics Society Award for Best Actress here.
One of the most prestigious awards that you can get.
Can we talk about two people who should be here that aren't?
I know one of them is supposed to be Amy Adams, and
Amy Adams from Arrival absolutely should have been here, and no, there's no excuse for her not to be here.
she was the movie.
Yes, science fiction movies get a bad rap at the Oscars. It's not even cool. Okay, tell me. I'm sure Meryl Streep won in '86 for Best Actress for something, but Sigourney Weaver for Aliens is an all-timer. And science fiction movies tend to be, shunted. Because
At least she got nominated for it.
At least she got nominated. Amy Adams wasn't even nominated. And Amy Adams did a great performance in this movie. It's a science fiction performance. It's a performance that's not like Sigourney Weaver in Alien, where she picks up a gun and fights the bad guys. It's very intelligent. It's very empathetic, emotional.
That was not a slog, and you would think that one if I were to tell you it's about science, it's a science fiction story about a linguist and how do they
on
break
paper,
down.
man, it reads dry. Okay, but it's not. It's
not.
Hugely emotional, and Amy Adams carries a lot of emotional weight in that movie. There's no reason why she hasn't been nominated. Sorry, Meryl Streep, you're a great actress.
Yeah.
No.
That's the one that had. What was the other one?
Well, Taraji Henson for Hidden Figures.
Absolutely.
Taraji Henson for Hidden Figures should be nominated too because she's great.
She's fantastic.
She's not just she's smart. She's funny. She's full of presence. Watching her navigate through this world of white guys and NASA and having her own place and having her own say is tremendously exciting.
And she's another one like Ruth who is on TV a lot. She's Cookie on Empire. But she plays. She was on Person of Interest.
Man,
I think she's great in everything.
My favorite Taraji Henson moment in her work that she's ever done is a movie called Rattle. I was about to say Rattle and Hum, but it's
Rattle. She played Bono. That's how good she is.
The film director. Oh God! Now I'm drawing a blank on the film. That's the name, and I could see it.
If you tell me what's it about, I could probably.
It's
help
the rapping movie with the guy who used to play Iron Man. Rhythm and Flow or Hustle and Flow. Hustle and Flow.
I was going to say they also are together in.
You have to understand.
Empire.
I'm working without a net here. Okay,
Terrence Howard.
Yes,
because they also do Empire, which is basically
yes.
Hustle and Flow on a weekly basis.
Anyway, Taraji Henson is a pregnant woman in Hustle and Flow. She's one of Terrence Howard's women he keeps. She's pregnant, and she doesn't have any prospects in life. The performance she gives, her eyes literally have no hope in them. And they tell her, "Hey, sing this song and sing this line in this song. We're going to do this song. It's hard out there for a pimp." She sings that line. Terrence Howard says, "No, push that shit out." And so she pushes it out. She sings it. And then they say, "Okay, get out of the room. Get out of the room. We're going to cut this song." And then she hears her song, her voice, for the first time in this hip-hop song. It's a great song. And she hears, and her eyes, bing, the light goes on. I have something to live for. My life has meaning now. It means something. And in that one instant, man, every time I see that movie in that one part, I start crying like a baby. Taraji Henson's great. It's a travesty she's not nominated for Hidden Figures here. She's a great actress.
And she's great in almost everything she does. And I like it even more when she plays like on Hidden Figures. I liked her because she was reserved, because that's her character. Her character was not someone who pushed envelopes. She was not a loud and proud.
She held herself in numbers. Numbers were safe. Numbers meant everything to her because she understood them. She couldn't understand the world around her, but she understood this.
But I will always root for her in whatever she does, because I've never seen her do anything bad.
Yep, she should be here, totally.
Actor in a leading role. All right. This one is a little more defined. I think there's some clear winners and losers. Not winners and losers, but there's some clear front runners.
Well, there's two front runners.
So
for
let's
sure.
go down the list. Casey Affleck, Manchester by the Sea. Andrew Garfield, Hacksaw Ridge. Ryan Gosling, La La Land. Viggo Mortensen, Captain Fantastic. Denzel Washington, and Fences. All right.
All of these, in some degree or another, deserve to be here, I think.
I do too. I think actually this is one of the few years where, thanks to you and thanks to, I will give props to Demir over at my local. He's the general manager of my local theater. I've got to see everything. Every single movie we're talking about I actually saw. Normally I have one or two. I thought that Viggo did a great job in Captain Fantastic, but I thought the movie was...
I liked the movie a lot, and I liked his work in it a lot. I also think that he's kind of boosted by the performances around him with the children, right? Because they're all going through their own struggles, and he's supporting them as a father should.
Well, then we can easily say that Denzel Washington has the most help.
He does have a lot of help, but
that's why I'm bringing this up, because I think Denzel Washington in Fences is masterful, but then look at all the people around him. Mm-hmm. There is no weak. Who's the weakest person in that? Nobody.
If you want to have a weak person, it might be the kid playing his son, the younger son. But
that's true.
But I mean, he's pretty good.
Still good.
But he's basically somebody for Denzel to flail at.
But
we'll get to that in a second, because I want to talk about something in particular about that. But Viggo Mortensen is really good in Captain Fantastic. He deserves to be here. But there's just at least 2 or 3 better performances in this category than him.
Yep.
Let's go to Denzel Washington in Fences. What you're saying?
No, I was just saying
he being helped, but you know what?
No, I was going to say
here's his biggest help, that he gets to work off of a screenplay and a play that is tremendously great. When you say those words, it's hard not to be bad.
My point was, if you're going to use Viggo Mortensen, if you're going to say he was boosted up by the quality around him, nobody had more quality around them than Denzel Washington.
They're all boosted.
And he's still, but I think he might have dragged some people up.
They're all still boosted by the material, which is so strong, so well written. It's a great play. Great.
Oh, absolutely.
August Wilson,
Prize winning.
Yeah. August Wilson's one of our greatest playwrights. So when you're saying those words coming out of your mouth, and you're bringing the emotion to them, and there is a rhythm, and it is a fast-paced speaking film because there's a lot of dialogue.
Oh, it's dense.
But Denzel Washington, man, that performance he takes you on, he is not likable. If it was a lot of other actors doing that role, man, I don't know if we would have followed through with him, because it's Denzel Washington, who is so charismatic, who you can't take your eyes off of, being this really pretty vile guy he has reasons for the reasons he's made, for the choices he's made. He has reasons. We understand them. We understand how he got to the places that he made. That doesn't make those decisions any worse. And watching him, the sequence everybody's going to talk about, it's probably going to be the Oscar scene, is him and Viola Davis when he reveals to Viola Davis, hey, I've got somebody on the side and she's having a baby. And Viola Davis reacts how we would expect any debate to react.
And that's the scene they're going to show for her.
Yeah, for sure. And just watching Denzel kind of step back a little bit, let her have the moment. You have to. It's her moment. But he carries himself really well in this film. My favorite interactions with Denzel, oddly enough, were with his friend. I liked how they talked.
Well, that was when you could see how he was charming and he was fun to be around, because he was telling stories.
He has a magnetic personality that draws people to him, and then when you get to see the really anger and bitterness underneath,
he's a trapdoor spider.
Exactly.
As soon as he draws you in, and as soon as he's close enough to you, he destroys everything he touches.
Yeah. Denzel Washington is my pick for this award, and I'll get to why over Casey Affleck in a minute. I think he may actually win it because there's a momentum thing going. And I'll talk about that why as well. But Denzel Washington is one of our greatest living actors. And although Training Day is a great movie and his performance in Training Day is really good, I have the feeling that if Denzel Washington wanted to be recognized for any part that he's ever played, this would probably be the part.
Let's not forget that he also directed this.
Yes, he did.
And that's difficult to do this caliber of acting when you're directing.
Especially with this amount of dialogue, putting the emotion that you're putting in the dialogue, and dialogue is delivered at such a fast pace. I mean, not incoherent. It's very coherent, but you're keeping up with a rhythm of a life, and to watch them navigate through this script and do it really skillfully. There's a little work involved in watching Fences, because Fences isn't the most cinematic of movies. It's 3 locations, if that. But man, he does get great performances out of everybody. He does direct it. He directs the hell out of it. And he gets such great dialogue and such a great moment. I love the line where he says, "I'm trying to punch a hole, and I spend Friday night with you trying to punch a hole in forever." And that's a great moment. I want him to win. That's who I want to win.
Okay, so why him versus Casey Affleck? Well, actually, we'll save that, because I think Casey Affleck and Denzel are the 2 front runners.
They are.
Ryan Gosling, La La Land.
Ryan Gosling and
La
La La
Land a lot, and I've given my opinion on Ryan Gosling.
I kind of sort of agree with you, but I do think that he deserves to be nominated here. Just the empathy that he has. You want to be fair? Let's scratch La La Land off and put The Nice Guys. The work he does in The Nice Guys is harder than the work he does here, and he's got to sing and dance here. The work he does in The Nice Guys, he's a comedic lead in that movie, and he's so funny and you still have empathy for him because he's such a lousy drunk, but you still care about him. And just the sequence of him trying to close a bathroom stall door, or the little Abbott and Costello riff he does when he sees the dead body next to him. Just the relationship he has with his daughter and the relationship he has with Russell Crowe in that movie.
I thought he did a good job, but he wasn't singing in La La Land.
Yeah, I like the singing voice, but it's a jazzy kind of low caliber voice. It's not. He doesn't have a big moment kind of singing, not like Emma Stone does in Audition. It's a little more casual. But I'm squinting and I'm going La La Land, but Nice Guys, man, Nice Guys.
And then Andrew Garfield in Hacksaw Ridge, which
Andrew Garfield is great in Hacksaw Ridge.
I want you to say that we're recording this Saturday, so it's right off the bat. I stayed up until 2:00 last night seeing this movie because it was the last one I could, and it's been out for so long.
Let's talk about
this is 2 movies. Hacksaw Ridge is 2. We're going to talk about Hacksaw Ridge.
It is 2 movies.
It's 2 movies in one.
It's this hokey pre-World War II propaganda thing, and then it's this Mel Gibson Splatterhouse of Violence kind of thing.
Actually, I think it's 3 movies.
Yeah.
The first movie is the hokey. Hey, I'm a kid in Kentucky growing up, and I meet my pretty girl, and then there's a few good men thrown in there for the middle part.
Yeah.
And then they throw
or an officer and a gentleman, even kind of.
Yeah, but there's that courtroom drama for about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then
there's the war movie.
And once he's in the courtroom drama, he kicks it into.
It stops being hokey, and it starts being kind of really poignant and full of ideas, and kind of. Let's just put the elephant in the room. This is a movie directed by Mel Gibson, who is, not the most popular people right now.
Yeah.
This is kind of his movie. That's kind of his comeback. The fact is, Mel Gibson is a really good director. He can direct action sequences very well. He can even direct performances very well.
It's a well-directed movie.
Depending on the source material. I think the hokiness and the kind of cornball Capra-esque kind of stuff is intentional.
I do too.
It's kind of setting us up for something that's definitely where a war that people imagine is definitely not the reality. And I think Hacksaw Ridge is quite a good movie. However, Andrew Garfield is better in Silence. He is better in Martin Scorsese's Silence, and that's the film he should have been nominated for. The performance he gives off here, for one thing, he's got such a deep-fried Southern accent that it's like 90% batter and 10% chicken, man.
Oh, my God.
And his work here, although he puts it in his eyes, it's a good performance, especially once he gets on the battlefield.
Well, like I said, once the war kicks on, actually, once the courtroom starts going, his sincerity comes through.
The sincerity is
because up until then it was hokey and weird, and he's got awful. They even admit
the relationship with the nurse feels almost stalker. It would be stalkery now. It's very stalkery, and it's going to give blood just to be around her. That's
And it seemed awful quick, and it was
I mean, but the movie has things. Okay, we have beats to hit.
But I mean, it just feels like it feels like they didn't have much time together, anyways.
Right.
It doesn't feel like it was like you can compress time. I understand that. So if you say, oh, we're only going to spend 10 minutes on it, but there's no sense of we've spent that in the 10 minutes we've watched them. We are watching a relationship grow.
Yeah.
It seemed like, oh, we need him to do this. And then the next scene, we need him to do that. So that way, she cares about him for this reason there, and then we can get to.
I mean, it's very traditional in the way it's set up.
It's
very traditional, but it's so well directed and so well acted that Hacksaw Ridge is quite a good. It's a good film. It is a good film. Whether it should be here or not, that's up for debate. And whether or not Mel Gibson is quite out of the doghouse quite yet, that's definitely for debate.
I think he is because he got nominated.
Yeah, but you have to understand that there's a strong. People don't realize there's a strong conservative bloc in Hollywood.
Oh, I think we do know that. That's why.
That's why he's here. That's why he's here. But
let's go to Casey Affleck because I think Andrew Garfield did a great job. But again, anytime you
Andrew Garfield to me, like Ryan Gosling,
something else. He should have been there for something else. And when you're nominated and you should be in it, we're talking about a different movie. I don't think you can win.
No,
Casey Affleck.
Now, Casey Affleck for Manchester by the Sea. And here's a couple of things that there are troubles with. First off, it's a very subdued performance. It's very you don't get any emotional release with his character except for maybe a couple of instances, a couple of moments. So, and this is a character who's so withdrawn from the world, who is just not equipped to take care of anybody who's suddenly thrust in a situation where he has to. And this man can't even take care of himself. I'm surprised that he wasn't dead by the time this movie had started. There's a sequence in the film where he practically almost kills himself. I'm surprised that didn't happen. The machinery that he has to summon up from himself to go forward from day to day after the tragedy in his life, and it's a tragedy with a capital T, is incredible. The man has just to feel anything has to pick fights in a bar. Not even. I'll put it this way: he does feel, but he has to release it. The only way he can release it is to pick a fight in a bar.
It's like people who self-harm.
Yeah.
Instead of razor blades in the silence of his own room, he
who
goes out and instigates fights with people. After he gets drunk though, so that's
he had before his tragedy. Which, if you haven't seen Manchester by the Sea, the way the movie leaps forward and backwards in time, it's kind of hard to tell what kind of tragedy it would be that this guy would shut himself down like this. And the fact is that he's directly responsible for the death of his children. Right? Well, fairly directly responsible because his house burns down while he's gone.
Which is something that he forgot to put the screen up.
Yeah,
he was drunk, and he walked to the store, and instead of being gone 10 minutes, he's gone way too long.
And the place burns down. His two children are killed, and then his wife, who, I can't imagine any relationship surviving that. There's no way. And
it doesn't.
Yeah, and so he is so subdued and so beaten down that he... who had a house, who had a real job. Now he's just a handyman in apartment complexes, and he lives in a tiny little shack. He feels like he's waiting to die, even though he can't quite bring himself to kill himself. And then the situation where his brother dies of a heart attack, and he's forced to take care of his nephew.
Well, I think the brother is the only support system he had.
Only support system,
and that's why he's still alive.
And he's trying to work himself to the point of being a responsible father figure or a guardian to this kid, and he just can't get there. He just can't. He doesn't have the emotional capacity to get there. It's a really great performance. It's very subdued. It's very quiet. Casey Affleck absolutely deserves to be here for his acting performance. However, the stuff that's been happening outside is why he may not win.
So the personal lives, which is sad, I don't agree with what's going on. For those of you who don't know,
there's no doubt in my mind
he's been
that
accused of. I know. I'm just saying that he's been accused of sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment, and practically assault, while making a movie with Joaquin Phoenix, which is that weird.
That
fake
stupid weird.
documentary.
Yeah. So I'm not condoning his. It's hard. We run into this a lot more because people forget that actors are human beings, and so I
think that he's genuinely sorry for what happened. I do think that. I don't know. There's still he won't talk about interviews because there's still legal things going on with it. It definitely happened, or something happened. Whether or not you believe it or not, I guess that's entirely your point of view. I tend to believe the victim over the person, so I think it actually did happen. Whether or not it means that he should win, that's a decision for everybody to make. I actually am voting for Denzel over Casey Affleck because I think Denzel Washington did a better job.
And I'm biased because I'm from.
I do think Casey Affleck did a really great performance here.
Like I said, I'm biased because Manchester by the Sea is about 30 minutes from where I grew
Yeah,
up.
it's basically around your corner.
And when I was watching this movie, which is so even if Casey Affleck wasn't nominated, as I'm watching this movie, everybody in there except for the brother, from
Kyle
Friday Night-
Chandler?
yeah, Kyle Chandler. God bless him. He tried his best.
Can't do that northern
He's
Manchester accent.
He's
No.
the guy from Hollywood they brought in to be.
I don't even know if he's from that part of the world.
No,
or
he's not.
Okay.
You could tell.
Casey Affleck is definitely part of that
Well,
world.
Casey Affleck can only be from that. Even when
Yeah.
he's playing Westerners, he's. But watching the way the script was, the streets, everything, it was so authentic, and it felt so real. That it's one of those situations, almost like with Hell or High Water, where you're from you're from Texas.
Hell or High Water wasn't even filmed here. It was filmed in Mexico.
Well, I mean, but it wasn't even the location doesn't mean much.
Okay,
but the people in it are so authentic.
The whole conversation about Dr. Pepper at the drive-thru of the gas station. Yeah, I've had that conversation. Hey, they didn't have Dr. Pepper. Here's Mr. Pibb. Well, they might as well have just pissed in a bottle because I'm not going to drink that crap.
Right. But that's my point. Is that so? That stuff like that I don't relate to. Mm-hmm. With Manchester by the Sea, it was like going to a family reunion that someone had filmed.
Yeah.
Because I know people like this who've had horrible tragedies
and
in
they
their
shut
lives,
off like that.
and this is how they act.
Yeah.
Because up there, you don't get help.
You keep going on. You keep moving.
It's the Christian Science way.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Concord, New Hampshire, where I grew up, is the birthplace of Christian Science.
Mm-hmm.
Mary Baker Eddy was from there. It seeps in, even if you're not religious, it seeps into the culture of, basically.
That's interesting.
Actually, it's here, if you're religious, you pray away. You pray to heal.
Yeah,
but if you're not religious.
but you're not afraid to ask for help here, right?
Yeah,
if you need it.
But if you're not religious, you don't go to the doctors unless you're sent there by ambulance.
Yeah.
My grandfather, when he died, he was 75 years old. He was on his motorcycle at 75 with his girlfriend. This is kind of, and he was at a red light. And they kind of stumbled. And he's like, oh, that's not right, because he couldn't even keep the bike up for a second. So they went in. They found out that he had a lemon-sized tumor in his brain that he's had probably his entire life.
Wow.
He had a hole in his heart that he probably had his entire life. Did he know this? No. Why? You don't go to the doctors unless you're dying.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Old West. You didn't go to the doctor because it was expensive, but you just didn't go to the doctor unless you really absolutely needed to.
Yeah.
You don't ask for help. Psychology is bullshit as far as, it's just one of those things. It's a mentality the entire region has.
It's seen as a sign of weakness, or you can't cope, you can't carry on.
It's just whatever. But it's built into the people's. And so when I see Casey Affleck portraying someone who withdraws, and the funeral scene is so funny when they're yelling across the room.
Yeah.
And there's humor in there, but it was so close to home for me that I admit I have a bias towards it because it was so real. And if somebody can,
that's what movies are supposed to do. That's what movies are supposed to do. They're supposed to put you in that kind of place where maybe it's not a common experience for everybody, but some people can easily recognize it. Manchester by the Sea is a hard film for me because I've only watched it the once.
You also have kids, so I don't have kids, but even I could imagine the horror. And to have kids,
it's a hard film, but I keep thinking about it. I've been thinking about it a lot. It made my top 10, even just on the one thing. I tend to watch movies more than once, not just to I'm a movie geek anyway, so I watch movies more than once, but I want to make sure that what I thought was real, right? Or if it gives me additional insight. So I'll see movies more than once. Like I've seen all the nominees, with the exception of Lion, which I just saw. I've seen all the nominees, and in Manchester, more than once, because I want to make sure that I know what I was thinking. So it's fascinating to me. This movie is so good. It's so good, and his work in it is so good. He deserves to be here nominated. Whether or not he's going to win, I think that's going to be the issue. That's going to be the cloud that's over the thing.
I think it's a toss-up. If this with leaning towards Denzel,
and I think Denzel, he's my personal pick because I think Denzel had a lot. They both had equally hard jobs. I'm not trying to put anybody's job over anybody else, but Denzel had that script that you had to power through. That's hard. You had to put the emotion in it, even while keeping the rhythm of the play. And he directed it, and he was spinning a lot of plates on that movie.
You think this is the best performance by a director?
Ooh, maybe.
Because I mean, Clint Eastwood did a great job in Unforgiven.
Yeah,
But-
he does.
But I think Denzel.
And you know what? If you want to be honest, I mean, Clint Eastwood, Unforgiven is a movie. Fences is a more of a play to the movie, but Unforgiven has got different locations, action sequences, and really hard performances. Yeah, that's. Clint Eastwood has a particular way of doing movies where he doesn't really. They do a lot of rehearsal, but when that camera starts, man, 2 takes.
Well, that's
maybe.
what I'm saying. You got to just. It's like, is it the technical skills? So obviously, I think Clint Eastwood's a better director than Denzel, but is he a better actor? No, of course not. I think he's he's. So it's one of those things where when you combine
Denzel
the two.
could, that even in bad movies, I mean, Virtuosity, he's still watchable. Okay, you can still watch Denzel do movies. Okay,
Virtuosity.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my lord! How did that get up in our Oscar talk? Virtuosity.
Well, it's got Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe, 2 Oscar winners. Yeah, if you were going to pitch Virtuosity, it's like, I've got this science fiction film that is topical about today, and I'm going to get
but
Best Actor Denzel Washington and Best Actor Russell Crowe.
yeah, that's today. But back then, the only person you could say that about was Denzel. Russell Crowe was nobody.
That's true, but you could pitch it weirdly now.
No, now you could, and actually, you probably couldn't pitch it now.
Yeah.
But about 10 years ago, you could have when
Oh,
Russell was
talking about Virtuosity is on me entirely.
Well, let's get on to director, which is I have no problems with any of these directors. I thought they all did a great job, and it's good to see we got Dennis Villeneuve
For Arrival.
for Arrival, Mel Gibson for Hacksaw Ridge, Damien Chazelle for La La Land, Manchester by the Sea. We've got Ken Lonergan, and Moonlight, Barry Jenkins.
Tough choice, because all of these are very well crafted films
And,
by their directors.
And as much as I did not like La La Land, I love the director because he did Whiplash, and you can see that in this. So when I look at when I was watching it, I thought it was well directed and it looked beautiful, and they were doing a lot of all the dance sequences were properly filmed. You hate it when they get too close. I thought they gave enough.
Well,
room.
that's the whole thing about the La La Land that I loved. The musical sequences and the musical numbers were done with cinema in mind and not stage in mind. It's really well showed, and the shot showed. It's really well shot, and it looks beautiful. And there's a cinema thinking and old school Hollywood musical thinking that's going along with La La Land that we haven't seen in a long time. I really love his work here. This is only his second directed feature film, I think.
So Whiplash was his first?
I think so.
Wow.
I might. No, maybe there was another one. But I know he's early in his career as a director. So is Barry Jenkins.
For Moonlight.
Yeah. So and when you nominate somebody for best director is kind of a legacy kind of award sometimes. And if you were going to go legacy award on this one, it would be a hard call because a lot of these people are first timers. Mel Gibson's the only one that's been nominated for anything else before, I think. But
What has Dennis Villeneuve done?
Well, Dennis Villeneuve did a movie called Prisoners. He did another movie called Incendies, which is really good. Prisoners is with Hugh Jackman and
That's the one with Paul Dano
Yeah.
and Hugh Jackman and is it Jake Gyllenhaal?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay,
yeah. And he also did another movie with Jake Gyllenhaal. And Dennis Villeneuve has a really interesting vision. I wasn't his biggest fan until Arrival. Arrival is such a great film. And it's got scope and vision and ideas keep bouncing back and forth and really good performances, emotion. To have all those science fiction ideas, heady ideas, plus with all the emotion, that's tough.
Without a lot of action.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an action movie, but
It's
got effects.
That's what I'm saying.
It's,
But that's what I mean. If this was a typical science fiction movie,
it's what science fiction really is supposed to be. I compare it to Close Encounters or 2001 or The Day the Earth Stood Still, a movie that has a lot of emotion. Well, 2001 doesn't have a lot of emotion, but a movie that has
a
emotion,
complete
but
lack
a
of emotion.
lot of thought and a lot of ideas, and to pack all that and make an entertaining film is tough. And Arrival might be the best directed film here. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but this is a strong category.
yeah, because Hacksaw Ridge was
Hacksaw Ridge is interesting.
very homage-y. It's
very old school in some ways, and then but Mel Gibson has. There's a weird streak in him where when it comes to shooting violence, he seems to groove on it a lot. I mean, you watch a movie like Passion of the Christ, which goes so over the top in violence, it may as well be a snuff film. I was one of the first audiences to see Passion of the Christ. I mean, one of the very first audiences to see it. We saw it before the Pope. Okay, and
Well,
yeah, and at the time when I saw it, I was like really passionately moved by it, and then the more I thought about it, it's like it's really gratuitous. The violence in Hacksaw Ridge isn't gratuitous because it's appropriate for what's going on in the film, but it's still a lot.
oh, that's quite
And
a bit.
he knows how to shoot it. Mel Gibson has scope. He knows how to shoot, and he can elicit good performances from people. I think it is a well-directed film. I'm not quite comfortable, and this
Yeah.
is where it gets to the issue of where you're going to nominate the guy or the work. And I can't separate the two because some of the guy is. in
Yeah,
the
I don't
work.
think he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna.
Some of the
I-
guy is definitely in the work here.
I think he has been. He's on his way back in. I think people are more accepting of him. There's going to be a large contingent that's not ever going to go to anything because I know some people who said, "Oh, I'm not going to go see Hacksaw Ridge because it's a Gibson movie." Well, okay, I understand that. It's the
See,
same
you know
people who
what
don't go
pisses
to
me off? It pisses me off so much is because before all this happened, man, I loved Mel Gibson. I love watching his performances. I love Braveheart. I love The Man with No Face, Without a Face. That film he made. I really love him as a director. I love him as an actor. He does such great performances, and not only the performances that he gives, but he boosts everybody up around him. I've always thought really highly of him. I was of all the stuff that's happened, I was so let down because I really, really loved what he'd done as an actor and a director and as a filmmaker. I was so upset by that. I'm angry about it, but not nearly as as I was upset because I really to separate the art from the artist, which is a huge requirement for the stuff that I do. Sometimes it's harder than others. I didn't grow up with movies by Roman Polanski, so I can see a movie like Chinatown or Rosemary's Baby at a technical level and put all the stuff that he did aside a little easier than I can with Mel Gibson, who is very much a part of my childhood. Not childhood,
sure.
but definitely a part of my influence.
no,
my
your
moments.
teenage years.
Yeah.
The '80s was all Gibson.
Yeah, very much a part of that where I lived with those films and loved them and loved his work in them, and then to have that twisted on you hurts more. So to separate the art from the artist is a little harder. I can't deny that he directed the hell out of Hacksaw Ridge, though.
No,
I
it
can't
was-
deny that. So,
Well, and then I say Manchester by the Sea, which I think as a director, this was an achievement for getting the quality of the performances.
here's the
I'm
thing
not
about Kenneth Lonergan. Kenneth Lonergan is a writer.
Yeah, I think it's a better
foremost than a
written-
director. But he's one of my favorite movies. You Can Count on Me with Mark Ruffalo and Laura Linney. Laura Linney is great, and Mark Ruffalo, and it's actually kind of a similar idea. Imagine if instead of Manchester by the Sea, the children died, the parents died. That's what You Can Count on Me is about, because it's about Laura Linney and Mark Ruffalo, a brother and sister who had basically had to bring each other up because their parents died in a car crash. So their life has been centered around tragedy, much like Manchester by the Sea, and the relationship that they two have. And I think that was his first film. It's a hell of a first movie. It's really funny kind of a dark kind of humor kind of way, but it's not as bleak as Manchester by the Sea by a long shot, because the events in Manchester by the Sea are a lot more fresh than the events in You Can Count on Me, which are sort of in the past. That's a great movie. He also did another movie called Margaret, which is also really good, even though it didn't do very well. Anna Paquin, is it Anna Paquin? I'm probably blanking on the names now. It's a really good film. Manchester by the Sea is very well directed, very well acted. He absolutely deserves to be here. In comparison to more showy movies like An Arrival in Its Way is showy, or Hacksaw Ridge is showy. La La Land, definitely. In a movie like that where it's not so much scope as it is performance, the directing that he had to do. To get Casey Affleck in that place, I'd really be curious to hear their discussions they had about that character.
Yeah, and I think that's the achievement in directing in that particular one, is pulling the performances out of the folks and picking the right choices of the performance, because it's not a play and you got hundreds of different options, and I think he's picking proper options. It's almost like Moonlight. I think Moonlight is a really well done movie because of the content.
I think Moonlight's incredibly well directed. I think he absolutely deserves to be here. I love the basically the 3-act structure of the film with the 3 different performances, and each movie is its own little movie, right? And a piece of slice of life. I think it's a really great movie. It's also a movie that I've seen twice, and both times, for me personally, it was a little struggle to get through. They're very great performances. My favorite section of Moonlight is the 3rd act, the when he goes to see his friend more than basically the man he's in love with at the restaurant, and he cooks for him, and they have this connection that they have throughout the years. I thought it was very romantic and very well written and very emotional. And watching this performance come out, and I can't remember Black's name. I can't remember the actor's name because there's 3 different actors.
Right.
Watching him come out of his shell a bit, and because he's built up so much armor around himself, he's been hurt so many times in life, and basically the way he lives his life, he's required to have that armor. You can't let anybody in, and the way he opens himself up and lets people in is astonishing. And that sequence to me, I've read reviewers who's like, well, my favorite sequence is the first act, my favorite sequence is the second act, and they have the reasons. My favorite sequence is the third act because just watching that give and take in that performance, it's so well shot. There's a real scope to Moonlight that's present. There's a shot in it that I remember, the scene where the Mahershala Ali has the little boy in the water, and the camera is water level. It kind of goes above and beyond. It reminded me. This movie is totally disconnect from that, but it reminded me of Jaws.
Yep.
And because the way Jaws was shot it's actually interesting where that's the handheld shot that's in the water, but because the rise and the fall of the ocean, when you move your camera, it's actually easier to keep your camera still in the water, so everything kind of has a static look. I love that shot about it. Barry Jenkins did a fantastic job with Moonlight. He had a lot of things to mess around with. There's huge story here. It's a very character interacted people. It's a very character driven film. But there's a lot going on. He absolutely deserves to be here. Whether or not it's the best directed film, he's a new filmmaker, and a lot of these filmmakers don't have a lot of films on their roster. I mean, even Mel Gibson hasn't directed that many.
Well, I think we can agree that probably La La Land's going to win this, though.
Yeah, La La Land is going to win this. I think it's pretty evident to me. Best director, for one thing, you get lucky when Best Picture can go up to 10, but you only get 5 for Best Director, and there's so many other directed works that are so well done that didn't make the cut. Like, there's a movie that came out last year that is made number 1 on my list. It's just one of the best directed films I've ever seen, and it's Park Chan-wook's The Handmaiden, which is not. I don't know. It probably didn't have the money push to make it to where it is, because I think Amazon Studios released both Manchester by the Sea and The Handmaiden, and they had to concentrate more on Manchester by the Sea. You only have so many marketing dollars to spend, so Manchester by the Sea got it. But Handmaiden is the best directed film I saw last year.
All right. Well, like I said, I think it's going to be La La Land. Let's go to Best Picture, and we've talked about a lot of them, which is good, because that way we can wrap this up without going into depth.
Yeah, I think we've talked about all of them, really.
But we got Arrival, Fences, Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, Hidden Figures, La La Land, Lion, Manchester by the Sea, and Moonlight. So, process of elimination. What do you think here on this particular list, which is a good list? I can't really complain about this list.
Mm-mm.
Normally there's somebody in there that's like, what the hell is this doing
All
here?
of these films are great films.
All great films, and I would recommend everybody seeing all of them, which I did mostly in a 2-day span. But it was a great 2 days, because I think...
They didn't all blend together for you? You didn't start saying...
Oh, no, because knowing about them ahead of time, I was able to stagger them.
Yeah.
Plus, we have we've got some matinee hero movies that I threw in to break it up.
Yeah.
So I had some movies that would totally, and I would look at them ahead of time, and I would like, oh, these are two, like I didn't want to watch Loving with Ruth Negga.
Yeah.
And see Moonlight.
Right.
Back to back.
Right.
Because I knew what they were about.
Right.
So I kind of broke it in with, Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
So something like that.
Yeah.
So I kind of went through it. I don't think Arrival's got a shot.
That's a shame, because
it's a great movie.
Whether or not I like I said, your top 10 list is never really static. It's just for the moment when you write it. And although La La Land ranks above Arrival on my top 10 list, it might not stay there. Arrival might be my favorite movie of these.
Hacksaw Ridge, I saw it last night. I was impressed with it, and I liked it more than I thought.
I think the politics around it are not going to let.
But I also don't think it was as good as some of these movies. So
Yeah.
Hacksaw Ridge, gone.
Yeah.
Hell or High Water.
Hell or High Water is a little esoteric for this group of people, and it's a very good film. I don't think it has the momentum, but it's really really well done. It's got a lot of great performances. It's a shame that performances like by Chris Pine and Ben Foster weren't recognized because they were quite good.
Oh yeah.
I think it's got a snappy screenplay. I'm pretty sure it was nominated for screenplay. Yeah, but it's in comparison to the rest of the films here, not by quality, but just in terms of sheer momentum, it's not going to win it.
Lion, I don't think.
Lion,
very good movie.
It's building, but
I
I,
know,
don't
but
think it's going to build enough for it to win.
I think it's building for Dev. I don't think it's building as a whole.
Yeah.
I think Dev has got a really good shot at
Lion. Of all the films here, kind of surprised me the most. I did not expect it to be as good as it was. I felt like of all the movies that were here, it was the most Oscar baity, but it's actually really damn good.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Manchester by the Sea is not going to do it because I think it's too much of a downer.
I agree. We're just going to go ahead and say it. The elephant in the room is movies about Hollywood tend to be loved by Hollywood.
Like I said, it's a circle jerk.
Yeah.
I'm just going through because I think Moonlight is too new.
Moonlight, okay.
It's got a lot of momentum though. It has.
Here's
been
what
stuff.
I'm gonna say this right now. You've got your movies that are the most deserving / best, quote unquote, best made. In a year like this, where a movie like La La Land, everybody expects La La Land to win, and not just because it's it's kind of a crowd pleasing kind of thing. The movie that it kind of is, all the Hidden Figures as a crowd pleaser is over La La Land. I mean, for one thing, Hidden Figures, more people have seen it.
Well, that's why I was going down the list because I thought Moonlight. I was getting to the ones that I liked.
Moonlight, hardly anybody has seen other than critics, really.
Yeah, and I think Fences. I think the performances are great. Again, it's another super downer of a movie. I think, to me personally, I think it's between La La Land and Hidden Figures.
Yeah, it is.
And my favorite movie was Hidden Figures. Of
Yeah.
all of these, Hidden Figures was my favorite. It was because not only was it important, which is I think is a key. Mm-hmm. It was a fun movie. It was entertaining. It had some drama in it. Great performances. Kevin Costner was good in it.
It's an enjoyable film. It's very enjoyable, and it's poignant, and it's got a lot of things to say.
But I don't think it's got the momentum. I think La La Land's got it.
Yeah, all these I think La La Land's going to win. Now, if I were an Academy voter, and I've said this before, if I were an Academy voter, then I was going to vote for these films. In a year like this, and when I was my 20-year-old self would be smacking me around for saying this because I always believed the one movie that should win should be the best movie. And the way you should look at the Oscars is don't look at them in the moment. Look at them from 10 years from now. 10 years from now, when you see the nominees, which of these are going to be the ones that's glowing out? Which of these are the ones that's going to be classic? Like, yeah, right. Brokeback Mountain should have totally won that year. I think everybody agrees on that now. But, it's rare that Oscars have the foresight to see that far in the future. You can't, obviously, you don't know what the future is going to hold, but you can tell. When you watch one of these movies, you can tell which one's going to stand the test of time, which ones are going to be the audiences that embrace it. I think Hidden Figures has that. I think La La Land, to some degree, has that. I think Arrival has that for sure. I think Arrival is going to be that movie 10 years from now. Everybody's going to go, what were y'all thinking? Why didn't you nominate Amy Adams? Why didn't this win Best Picture? Of all these films, that one, to me, feels like the most. In a year like this, with the politics and the way the world is right now, I want to vote for a movie that is a statement and not necessarily a statement of quality, but something where everybody comes out and says, look, this is important. We need to discuss this. We need to open up the conversation. The idea is if more people see this movie and understand and have empathy and understand this life, maybe they can understand each other a little bit. Maybe things can heal. Maybe we can find a place to close the divisions. And that movie is Moonlight. If Moonlight wins Best Picture, it is a statement to me that if people, it'll make more people go see it because, hey, it won Best Picture. And if these people see it, including a whole swath of people who would have never seen this movie otherwise, and they come to this empathy and they come to this kind of conclusion about it and understanding, and a piece of life that they don't understand, that they've never been a part of. It's not just an African-American story. It's a homosexual story. And it's a story about people, who live life without the kind of judgment that you're going to have to throw all that stuff away because you have no reference for this life. You cannot... We've discussed this in Matinee Heroes about walking in the shoes, right? And like in To Kill a Mockingbird. And of all the films here, That's a movie where I think everybody should see it, should talk about it. Maybe we're never going to completely close the gap, but maybe we can make it a little smaller. And that's the movie, to me, should win Best Picture. The movie that's going to win Best Picture, and my favorites are not really a part of this discussion. And any other year, it would be. My favorite movie is the one I want to win Best Picture. Moonlight's not my favorite movie. It didn't make my top 10, but I think it should win.
That's the show. Our 7th year is off and running. Thanks to Alan for his time, and remember to follow the podcast on Twitter at RealityCheckPod, like the Facebook page, head over to realitycheckpodcast.com to sign up for the newsletter or to download the app, and send any comments, questions, or guest suggestions to Craig at speakercraigprice.com. See you next week.